if you allow, because we already have 19 participants, which to me makes a very good population for the quorum. And if you allow, then we may wish to straight away start the discussion. I want to take the opportunity to welcome everybody else, whoever has logged in. But before we say anything, I think the most important thing is to put ourselves into the hands of the Lord. And in this juncture, I might request humbly Florence also to put us in the hands of the Lord. Florence, over to you. Florence. Florence, she's already in. So Florence, are you there? Hi, Florence. Okay. Maureen Mumbi Karaoke, can you come in and then Florence will close instead of you now closing? Maureen? Hi, Maureen. Hi, Florence, are you back? Okay, if that's not possible, then let's then.
I see we have Florence.
Hello? Yes, Dora?
Sorry, I saw that Florence mic was enabled, but we still can't get her. Maybe I can just pray so that we could start.
Yes, please, Dora. Thank you.
Father, thank you this morning for this opportunity that you have given us to gather again, even within this space of devolution for this discussion. We ask of you, Lord, that you may guide us in these discussions. Even as we start, we call upon your presence in the mighty name of Jesus to allow us, King of Glory, to be able to have good discussions to push the country forward. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Thank you very much. Amen. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think straight away we go to introduction on who are in the house. I'm Joseph Nyonje Kosure. I will be taking you through this process as the moderator for the day. May I get more introductions, starting by the caucus team, the civil society, very quickly. Evans.
Good morning, Daktari. My name is Evans Kibet.
Yeah, thank you.
The national convener for the Kenya Devolution CSO Working Group.
Thank you, convener. Any of your team that is maybe representing various regions?
Yeah, I think first apologies. A number of our members are still struggling. I don't know what's wrong with the teams because I am getting calls of people asking for the link, saying the link is not working. But I guess those are just technical issues that will be addressed as we go along. But I know we have some members already on the call who are members of the steering committee. Like we have Malusha. Maybe those are the ones I can acknowledge, the steering committee members, because I know them. We have Malusha. I had also seen Ngumi, Jacob, but maybe let me allow Malusha also to say hi as I check if there is any other member of the steering committee.
Yes, Malusha. Over to you. Wow. Malusha.
I think, Daktari, they'll need to be allowed to speak because if you are in the other participants, it's muted from.
Dora, can you allow them to speak?
Malusha has the right to speak.
Yeah, he has the right to speak actually. Malusa Bedi. Wow. Dora, are there challenges? Because this is going to really take a lot of time. Huh? Dora? Hi, Dora.
Hi, Dr. Kosure.
What's happening?
Everything has been updated from our side. Everybody
Yes.
has the right to the mic. They can all access
Yes.
their microphones unless somebody is having a challenge from their end.
Yeah, because now
I think that maybe participants, someone can just try and confirm this. But everybody, we've tried to go to the back end to enable the mics for everyone.
So what could be the challenge?
But specifically for Malusha, maybe he has an issue with his microphone.
Okay.
Because he's made him a presenter, so he can be able to control everything from his side.
So, Evans, can you then get to one of your colleagues again?
Maybe we could proceed because I am yet to
Yes.
see any other member. You can allow the other people in
Thank
the
you.
participants just to say hi. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Then we go to KDP team. Can you introduce yourselves? Just introductions.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I think on my side, I will introduce myself and allow others who are here. I think we have quite a number, not only from KDP, but also from our other programs, which is very good. I think we have colleagues from the Access program. We also have colleagues from the RPS program. We also have other colleagues running other pieces within the ACT. My name's Judy Oduma, the team leader, Kenya Devotion Program, which is implemented by ACT Change Transform.
Thank you.
Dora, you can come up to me and then allow others.
Okay, thank you. Other team leader, team from KDP. Very quickly.
Hello, Daktari.
Karibu.
My name is Paul Anang. I also work at ACT Change Transform, supporting the implementation of the Kenya Devolution Program, specifically the intergovernmental relations component. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. Welcome, sir. Next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Chege. I work with Kenya Devolution Program, monitoring and evaluation, research and learning office.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is
Good morning.
My name is Khalid Chule. I support comms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Michael Karanja, supporting KDP Output 4, Evidence Generation and Learning. Thank you.
Karibu Daktari. Next.
Good morning, Dora Wamuda, working for ACT Change Transform, supporting knowledge management for the program.
Could be louder, Dora. Anyway, Dora, karibu sana. Next. That makes the whole team, I believe. Did you discuss the whole team?
You can proceed to others as they come in. Others can
Thank you
also
very much. Thank you very much. Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee team. Hello, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee team.
Sorry.
Yes.
Good morning and good morning, everyone. This is Kikuchi Pwany, the CEO IGRTC, and we are glad to be here. And we have a team online, including Dr. Kosure and my colleagues. They can be able to introduce themselves as well.
Karibuni IGRTC team.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mumbi Kariuki from the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee.
Next.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Trevor Omwega from IGRTC.
Karibu sana, Trevor. Next. Oh my goodness. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So our discussion today basically is on effective service delivery through transfer of functions. I wish just to say that, point out a little bit that transfer of functions is a continuous process. It's normally circumstantial in any devolved system of governance. Even if you devolved 200 years ago, like the USA, Canada, and all these kind of countries, the transfer of function continues. So even as we delve into this matter, we might not have the notion that there's a day that Kenya will finish the process of transfer of functions. Because if you look at our constitution, Article 186, 187, 190, you find that they provide for interesting scenarios of management of transfer of functions, where we have these issues of exclusivity, concurrency, and residual scenarios. And Article 187 then talks about how we do the transfers, functions and powers between levels of government. And this can happen at any time. We already have an example of Nairobi Metropolitan, as you all know. And then Article 190 also provides for the parliamentary interventions. So you find that out of those three articles, 187, 186, 187, 190, then a transfer of function issue is a continuous process in our devolved system of governance. However, today, we would be listening to where we are with this process for purposes of learning. It's a very, very, very important learning environment. And I really call upon the presenters to be spot on and let us know the status in which we are. Having said that, then now I may request our team leader at ACT, Madam Judy Oduma, to make just a few remarks as part of the opening ceremony of this discussion. Madam Judy Oduma. And probably Mumbi can share with us the program on the screen. Madam Judy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kosure. But I think first of all is to thank you, IGRTC, for thinking about this very, very good conversation. I want to thank the CEO and the SG. I call him SG. I want to thank the chair. I want to thank you, Kosure, because I think you're sitting an advisory position within IGRTC really is churning out a lot of good work and processes that are actually beyond what we would expect, especially at this current time, around intergovernmental relations, the workings, where we are, we know the status of the transfer of functions, but also just think about how do we ensure that we involve our CSOs. I think I'll not go into the program because I know we all know about the Kenya Devolution Program, but I just wanted to mention that under the program goals, we have four distinct but integrated outputs that are working towards achieving the goal of strengthening devolution. One is on improved intergovernmental relations and coordination. Two is on the county government economic planning and development, including matters of trade and investment, and strengthening the capacity of the county. Number 3 speaks to social accountability and participatory processes, and how do we strengthen these processes to improve service delivery. And then the last one is actually around ensuring we have research and evidence generation to inform public policy, but also to facilitate peer learning and improve service delivery, but also improve engagement around the work on the devolution. So this particular convening, you see, is covered with all this, or rather covers all these components, because we know that accountability and public participation, what we actually call public access and participation, is enshrined in the Constitution. So speaking to that, it's a combination of, for example, the support we've given to IGRTC on intergovernmental relations and strengthening intergovernmental relations, and the support we have been giving to the KBCWG, a very good partner, a very good network, basically enhances the reason why we are here today. So as Dr. Kosuro, you have rightly put, the objective of this is really to learn, to share knowledge, to learn, and to look at the various aspects that we can put together, or we can begin reflecting to see to it that we have a critical support to the process that we're talking about, the transfer of functions, but also to help our networks to understand the status of around the transfer of functions, and to see how we can actually begin working together and can make progress together. So if you look at the objectives of this, we really do hope, and I really do hope, that we can have our KBCWG, our network, which actually covers all the 47 counties, understand the process, and you have said it correctly, it is a continuous process, it is circumstantial. We were hoping that for the last 10 years, since we have had devolution in place, that we wouldn't have the challenges that we have now. It really means that this is a process that is going to actually work as long as devolution is in place. We're also hoping that we can actually have, with of course the topic, effective transfer of functions to improve service delivery. Basically thinking about and reflecting about how can we ensure implementation? How can we ensure a strong accountability system which can basically actually influence policy and practice of devolution? How can it impact on service delivery? How can it build on the development processes across the country? And with this background, remember, much as we have the counties so much seen this day as if they're just political units, remember at the back and the agitation for a new constitution, the basic fact was we wanted to have the counties as centers of growth, as centers of development, as centers of job creation, and many other things. So if we have an effective transfer, we indirectly or directly or indirectly support this particular desire of Kenyans. And we cannot do this if we don't have everybody involved. And therefore, the CSO network, IGRTC, with its great mandate as an arbiter when it comes to issues of conflict across the national level, the levels of the government. And as an institution that is mandated to strengthen intergovernmental relations, we will be actually speaking towards the implementation of the provisions of the Constitution. And so if I may just finish, we have had different CSO networks working in different sectors, which basically align to the fourth schedule of the Constitution on the whole functions. We have present here today, I think CEO, Chair, and Kosuro, you should know that we have CSOs working in the areas of health. We have CSOs working in the area of natural resource management and climate change, others on agriculture, others on education, others on health. And we need to have this empowered so that they can be able to advocate for issues. They can have social demands or social accountability, but on matters that they actually understand. Understanding the transfer function process will allow us all to understand the aspects of demand for services, their priorities, to allow social accountability. And therefore, we would like to just conclude and say, we thank you, IGRTC, for organizing, for championing for this, and actually mobilizing for this particular session. And we look forward to really having solid conversations. And at the end of it all, a concrete way forward to just see how do we work together to solidify the process and success of this good cause and the process aimed at strengthening development. As you know very well, and I think that was a very good opening on the Kosure. The transfer of function process is circumstantial. It is continuous. And therefore, it's good to have and to think about very good concrete frameworks for engagement, actually continuous engagement, but also continuous education and learning and advocacy, even as we move towards strengthening our CSO networks, but also strengthening IGRTC. So I'd like to end there and say I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for allowing this session to happen. Let's think about how we can move this forward. Remember, when one side does not work, there's always another way. There's always another plan. So this could be a very, very good way of actually agitating for the completion of this particular process, or rather strengthening of this particular process. So I want to end there, Daktari, and say thank you. I will be here listening to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judy, for actually setting up the climate. You have really pointed to real reason why we're here. Of course, that I would think as a constitutional person who believes in this constitution, the issue of engagement with the civil society organizations, who are really a very good pointer to the power of Article 35 of the Constitution, and of course, Article 118 on public participation and many other articles that are related. You've talked to the issue of having to support these people, the CSOs, for improved intergovernmental relations. You have alluded to social accountability issues. You have alluded to research and peer learning to improve work on devolution. And you have also informed us about the various sectors that the CSOs work in, to the extent that they need to be empowered. Part of empowerment is information. Information is power. And I think today's event is going to do exactly that, apart from the other lines of empowerment and support requirements. So having said that, may I now kindly request the convener of Devolution's CSO working group, our very good brother Evans Kibet, to give some words of wisdom. Karibu, Evans.
Thank you so much, Daktari, and also thank you, the team leader KDP, for those very good remarks. Mine will be very brief. First is to introduce the network for those who are interacting with the network for the very first time. As has been introduced, my name is Evans Kibet, the national convener for the Kenya Devolution Civil Society Organizations Working Group, which is a national platform for CSOs networks across the 47 counties. So basically, our structure is that all the CSO networks bring representatives into the Kenya Devolution CSO Working Group, and then we have the steering committee at the regional level that mirror the regional economic blocks. What's our mandate, as has also been alluded to by Madam Judy. Ours is to monitor implementation of devolution and contribute to effective implementation of devolution through engagement. The platform also is a structure for coordination and consultation on matters devolution, and more important, an opportunity for learning among the CSOs. Even today, the platform today presents a very unique opportunity for us to learn on some of the processes that would contribute to strengthening of devolution. This webinar, of course, I believe that those who have honored this invitation, these our members, are champions of devolution. And I don't want to go back to say what devolution is, because everybody, being a champion, you know what it is. But what I will emphasize is that what does devolution mean to citizens? Citizens in the counties, as we do our social accountability, we have affirmed or we have observed that citizens look up to county governments for critical services, and for those who are human rights defenders, these are actually human rights. Citizens look up to counties to deliver access to water, to deliver quality healthcare, especially primary healthcare, to deliver, basic education, the very foundation of education, that is ECD, issues to do with food security, if you look at the mandates. So if you analyze the functions that were assigned by our Constitution of Kenya, Schedule 4, to counties, they are basically a lifeline for many citizens here in Kenya. So therefore, our motive, or even our motivation to monitor implementation of devolution, is to better the lives of people. And when I say people, ourselves included. So what is the implication? And this is a question we have asked ourselves. What is the implication of a national government continuing to hold on resources and functions that are constitutionally assigned to county governments? Your guess is as good as mine. It means that counties' capacities to deliver those rights that I mentioned is limited. And that's why we said we'll continue to engage the actors involved in these processes to ensure that as much resources and functions as anticipated in the Constitution of Kenya are transferred to counties so that they can function optimally and improve service delivery. But our engagement, we needed to engage from a point of information. I think this I need to emphasize. We've been, of course, writing memorandums, writing petitions to county assemblies, to National Assembly, Senate, the most recent being the Division of Revenue conversation, which we also appended our voice. But it appeared like we don't have accurate information and adequate information as regards to the process in terms of transfer of these functions. So we said as the steering committee, and thanks to ACT for bringing us together, that we need to have an engagement, a learning with IGRTC to better understand where we are at in regards of this process. So I know Madam Juma has mentioned the objectives, but just our expectation as the Kenya Devolution CSO Working Group, just to reiterate, number one is to understand the role of IGRTC towards effective implementation of devolution. This is more broad, but then when we narrow down, of course, our ask when we wrote the request is to get an update of the progress made in unbundling, costing, and transfer function as per the presidential directive that was made, if I remember well, on 16th August 2023 during the devolution conference. And more important, what are the emerging issues in the process? For example, we understand that on 27th of November, there was a Gazette notice that had made a step to this end in regards to gazettement of this transfer. What happened to that notice? Because we have not seen more progress to that end. And then finally, of course, being that we are partners in this endeavor, what is the expected role of CSO? What does IGRTC expect of CSOs in implementation of its function? So as I conclude, allow me to appreciate the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee led by the team leader here, Dr. Kipkurui Chepkwony. But probably I heard somebody say chairman. I don't know whether the chairman is on board, but if he's there, our appreciation to the entire team for agreeing to honor our request, or for honoring our request to come for an engagement. And also our partners ACT for continuing to support the strengthening of the Kenya Devolution CSO Working Group and creating more avenues for such engagements. And of course, which goes without saying, our partners, the UK International Development, because they have been of great help to us to strengthen our capacity. Before I forget, I will also wish to appreciate the members of the Kenya Devolution CSO Working Groups who are represented here. Thank you for creating time, but also the steering committee who have supported the mobilization and planning towards this engagement. If you look at the program, I think it reflects expectations.
Hi, Rasta. Good morning.
As I conclude,
Well,
yes.
No, I unfortunately
Yeah.
won't be able to
What's
attend
up?
the
What's up?
WPS.
What's up?
So if
Please.
there's a specific role, I
Dora,
could assign someone. But if it's
Dora, somebody speaking should mute. Please. Evans is on the floor. Yes, Evans.
Thank you for your protection, sir. So, as I was concluding by saying that if you look at the program, we are very grateful that it reflects some of the asks by our members. We circulated a document where we collaborated in asking specific questions, and I know more questions will come in the plenary, and hopefully, if not all the questions, some of the questions will be answered, and then it will inform our engagement moving forward. At this juncture, I wish us an insightful engagement, and I would urge our members to learn as much as possible, even as we engage, so that we all contribute to effective implementation of devolution, as our rallying call is one voice, one agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Evans, for the insights. And I can see that all that you've given to us is actually what you do as a network. And what comes into a snowball is that you are a citizen empowerment team, which you are doing quite well, because we all believe, as you have rightly put it, that our citizens look to counties to give them the services that they expect. And those expectations are actually human rights expectations. And that counties are our lifeline to the betterment of our lives. And also, I take it that your expectations are basically for, one, understanding role of IGRTC, which I believe as we move forward, it will be put very clearly. The update on unbundling, costing, and transfer of functions is another expectation. You'd like to know the status, and also that issues of that are emerging, particularly this issue of the Gazette notice that was recalled, that was done in November. And lastly, how can civil society organization work with IGRTC and like-minded institutions to make devolution work? I think that's what I catch up from your comments, and I thank you very much for that spot-on remarks from your team. Thank you very much. Now, that done, I now wish to call upon our Chief Executive Officer, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, Dr. Kipkurui Chepkwony, who is one of the conveners of this process, together with the ACT and CSOs. Daktari, karibu, remarks tu, alafu nitakuitisha utoe presentation kidogo.
All right,
Daktari.
thank you so much, Dr. Kosure, and thank you, our co-conveners, that is the Kenya Devolution Support Program, through ACT, and the team led by Kibet, that is the Devolution CSO Working Group. I want to welcome all of us, the participants here, to this webinar, and appreciate very much the thought that made us to be here to start having this conversation. And as IGRTC, we take this as the right step to be able to start engaging with the interest groups who are interested much on devolution and on this issue of transfer of functions or devolution as a whole. So I think as IGRTC, who we have the mandate to be able to carry out the intergovernmental relations management, we are the ones the lead in this space of IGR. And of course, without saying that we are the secretariat of the summit, that is the sitting of the president, chaired by the president, and the 47 governors. We serve as the secretariat. And just to mention, I'm sure everyone has alluded, Judy has alluded to that, and I think Kibet has also mentioned that we are the successors of Transition Authority. And so there are some of the functions that we do as IGRTC, which were residual after the TA stamp came to an end, and also that IGR Act of 2012 has also given us mandate to ensure that we coordinate the harmonious cooperation or existence between the two levels of government, beside facilitating also the dispute resolution that will be able to emerge over time or from time to time between the two levels of government, as well as also intra-county disputes, where you might be able to have issues between one county government and the other county government, which we have also been able to handle. So in a nutshell, that is what IGRTC stands for. We are glad to be here. I'm looking forward to having a lot of engagement in this sitting. I would do more during the Q&A, but for now, we welcome you to this. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Daktari, for being very spot on, brief, and to the point. And of course, catching up with a little bit of what you are going to tell us on brief on IGRTC. I think you have become very smart in cutting down on the time that we had lost. So, karibu sana. So I now take the opportunity to really welcome everybody else. I can see we are a full house of 68, and maybe by the time we end, we might be 100. So thank you very much for this interest that has been shown in this webinar. So now, if you allow me, then we might go straight to the presentations so that any comments that you might have as an intervention to the welcoming remarks of team leader Judy Oduma, convener Evans Kibet, and Dr. Chepkwony, I think we put it down to the plenary session so that we really catch up with the time. If that is agreeable, you know, public participation, I do believe it is agreeable. In as many say yes, I yes have it. So now, let me go straight to presentations on effective service delivery through transfer of functions. And again, I now call upon Dr. Kipkurui Chepkwony, our very able Chief Executive Officer of Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, to give us a very brief, information on this. And of course, you'll be telling us something around status or of progress in transfer of functions. The 4 expectations of our CSO team, I do believe will be answered with your presentation, because you will be expected to take us through process that we undertook as a country in unbundling and transferring of functions. I know costing has been still something in the house to think about, successes and lessons learned, challenges, achievements, and proposed interventions and way forward. So I do believe by the end of your presentation, a lot of those things will be very clear. May I take the opportunity humbly to invite Dr. Chepkwony, CEO, IGRTC. Karibu, Daktari.
Thank you once again, Dr. Kosuri. I think, ladies and gentlemen, all of us who are here, as I earlier mentioned, we are talking to you from IGRTC, and we want to appreciate your participation in this. And first would be, why then were we able to convene this webinar? And I think there is evident that there is a consensus nationally now that devolution is one of the most visible benefits of the Constitution of 2010 Constitution, and that we know for sure now that devolution is here to stay, and we can only focus on how to deepen, expand, and consolidate it in a shared national pursuit for improved public service delivery, accelerated and inclusive national socio-economic development, and employment creation. As an entity of government, we acknowledge that civil society organizations play a critical role in monitoring educating the public about devolution. So this webinar then is going to provide a platform for us to learn, share experiences, advocate for effective implementation of the Constitution, and also to update ourselves on what stage are we in implementation of this Constitution. I should have been quoted at some point that I once mentioned that we still need about 20 more years for us to really be able to say we have been able to implement the Constitution with finality. As it is now, we are 11, 12 years old. The Constitution is 11, 12 years old. The devolution, that is the age it is. But the question would be, how much have we been able to do within devolution or in the devolution space? And looking at the subject at hand now that we are discussing on the transfer of functions, someone would ask you if today the founders of this Constitution, those who enacted this Constitution in 2010, if anyone walk up today and asked you, what are we talking about? Why are we still talking about the transfer of functions? We should have been done with this before. So the question then is, how far are we in the transfer of functions? How far are we in the transfer of resources? And are we at the point where we ought to be? And if we are not at the point where we ought to be, where is the challenge? And if there are challenges, then what needs to be done for us to keep going on the transfer or the implementation of devolution in this country? So I would want us to delve into the discussion about the transfer of functions, which the team here by
Dickson, can you mute? Dickson Wekesa, can you mute, please? Yes, CEO, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So as I was saying, the convener of devolution's working group really were among as the key expectations that he mentioned was they wanted to understand an update, to get an update on the progress. And that's why I'm asking, we need to really be able to take a back and ask ourselves, how much more do we need to be able to fully implement a transfer of functions? And so I will be taking you through in a short while, and I'll try my best to try and recover the time that we had allocated ourselves by highlighting on the contents of my presentation, but I would be able to do more at the Q&A. So I want to, like you had earlier directed Dr. Kosure, anyone who has any question, whether within the subject of the day or any other within the confines of IGR space or even devolution, I should be able to handle at the tail end of this. So let me take you through the process of the transfer of functions. And I think, one, it has been recognized that while devolution has significantly contributed to improve access to service delivery and addressing legacy inequalities in development resources, allocation and delivery of public services, we at IGRTC are cognizant of the fact that, one, the transfer of functions between the national and county governments, which will entail concurrent transfer of resources, that is both operational facilities and human and physical resources, are yet to be fully implemented. Two, in some sectors, there are ambiguities and disputes in transfer of functions and resources between national government departments and county governments, as well as also national government and county governments. Thirdly, that there have been gaps in the law that have inhibited the spirit of consultation, cooperation, and coordination between the two levels of government, and thereby giving rise to disputes. And if you will take note, most of the disputes between 2013 to 2017 between the national and county governments were handled, but some are still continuous. So if we were to talk about disputes, which I would suggest maybe that would be a discussion to discuss in the near future, we would want to share with the public and some interest groups like yourselves to understand what kind of disputes are these we are talking about. But for today, I will not want to be able to focus on the disputes, but it is something of interest to the team or everyone that is here to understand when we're talking about intergovernmental disputes, what are we discussing about? Are we discussing issues of resources? Are we discussing issues of functions? Or what is this? What are the disputes, the level of disputes that we are discussing? So that we'll be able to discuss in future with you. But if you want to get any of our disputes that have been registered with IGRTC, any individual can access that through our website, or you can always write to IGRTC. Fourthly, among us the issues is that improved IGR consultation, cooperation, and coordination between two levels of government, between the county governments themselves, present opportunities to consolidating and deepening devolution in a shared national pursuit of improved public service delivery, accelerated and inclusive economic development, employment creation, and poverty eradication. Fortunately for us, His Excellency the President are strongly and unequivocally committed to strengthening our devolved governance system. The President committed, one, in the better plan, that there will be effective transfer of devolved functions to the county governments, and two, there will be new dynamism in the functioning of the intergovernmental relation institutions, especially the national and county government coordinating summit and the IBEC. It is on this basis then that IGRTC has significantly been able to fast track on the process of transfer of pending functions to the county government. And you would note also that I would want to also agree to the comment that was made by Kibet, that the President pronounced himself, not once, but twice during the devolution meeting in Eldoret, and he has also subsequently been able to make a commitment on supporting devolution and the transfer of functions. I will then take you through the journey on the transfer of devolved functions. One, you would be able to know that by the end of transition period, the defunct transition authority had gazetted for transfer all the devolved functions to county governments pending functional analysis and costing in a number of functional areas through gazette notices. This is to just be able to say what I said earlier on. Are we transferring functions now as IGRTC? The answer is no. Majority of functions were transferred at the inception of devolution. And the gazette notices, for purpose of reference, you would note that in Gazette Notice Supplement number 16 of February 2013, that transferred the first 13 functions to county governments. Gazette Supplement number 116 of August 2013, with legal notice number 137 to 183 of 2013, transferred functions to all the 47 counties. Also, legal notice number 33 of 2014, February, transfer of agriculture training centers. Gazette Notice 825 of 2014 on guidelines for transition of staff to counties. Remember, as we are transferring functions, we are also transferring resources. So if you know that Gazette Notice 825, which is making reference to staff to the counties, human resource is also one of the assets that we transfer beside the function itself. Again, Kenya Gazette Supplement number 4 of 22nd January 2016, containing legal notice 2 of 2016 on transfer of roads, libraries, and electricity and gas reticulation and energy regulation. Again, Kenya Gazette notice number 140 of 9th August 2019, containing legal notice 142 of 2019 on transfer of libraries. Gazette notice number 8753 of 8 September 2017 on delineation of the function on betting, casinos, and other forms of gambling. Kenya Gazette Supplement number 106 of 19 May 2021. Thank you. Kenya Gazette Supplement number 106 of 19 May 2021, containing legal notice number 85 on delineation of the cooperatives function and legal notice number 86 on delineation of the disaster management function. Kenya Gazette Notice 2238 of April 1st, 2016 on clarification of functions as exercised by the national and county governments relating to 1, natural resources, excluding Water Resource Management Authority, Water Service Regulatory Board, Water Services Trust Fund, National Water Conservation and Pipeline Corporation, Water Appeals Board, Water Service Boards, functions also on regional development authorities, land functions, land surveying, mapping functions, metropolis function, and public works function. Subsequently, IGRTC has the legal successor of TA analyzed and provided clarity to public notices for 1, the transfer of library function to national and county governments through legal notice 142 of 2021, transfer of the disaster management function through legal notice 86 of 19th May 2021, transfer of the cooperative function through legal notice 85 of 19 May of 2021. And as a process leading towards adequate financing of the devolved functions, beside after a transfer of function, it is expected that resources will follow functions. And as I have mentioned before, that the functions were transferred at the inception of devolution. There have been further transfer of elements of functions, and now clarification of functions have also been done. You will see there have been gazette notices that speaks to one or the same function, or once or twice. And if you follow on those gazette notices or legal notices, you'll realize that there was further clarification and delineation of an element of a function or a function. Now, after the transfer of functions, it is expected then that IGRTC also carries on the hosting of those functions so that we are able to transfer resources attendant to that function. And as we speak, the financing, for adequate financing of the default functions, an attempt has been done to cost the functions that were transferred by TA. However, the exercise was not concluded. So to answer the question that was mentioned by Kibet, that we want to understand why national government is still holding on to resources. One, you will realize that the costing of the functions that was done by TA then was not conclusive. And currently, the county governments are allocated resources based on historical costs previously linked to the function, as were implemented by the then central government under the defunct constitution. And IGRTC is therefore at the forefront to ensure that the devolved functions are adequately financed through an agreed mechanism. And this is a discussion that I think in due course, we will be going into, because from 2013 to date, the costing of the functions, as I have mentioned, is through budget rationalization from how the functions were being implemented at the central government. As we speak now, even the functions that we are transferring as IGRTC, we are having a conversation with CRA on how, and also Treasury, on how then we should be able to progressively move from that model of costing of functions to a scientific model. And that's why I say the mechanism that will be agreed on once we conclude on the gazettement or issuance of the legal notice on the functions that we have just concluded the transfer, then that component of costing is a conversation that we should be able to go into in the near future. Now, to the question on what then is the current status of the transfer of default functions. As we may all recall, as mentioned even by Judy and Kibet, that previously we had published a legal notice through Kenya Gazette number 16170 on 27th November of 23 on delineation of the national and county government functions, which was later recalled to allow for further consultation. You will notice that before that legal notice was issued by IGRTC, the president had issued a directive that there would be no legal cases or court cases between the two levels of government. And we realized that there was still some components of the functions that had been delineated that we had not been able to get concurrence between the two levels of government during the delineation and clarification. And we felt it was important to recall the legal notice to allow for further consultation. And anyway, subsequently, following the 10th summit, which was held on 18th of December of 2023, it was revolved then that IGRTC further subjects the exercise to transfer of devolved functions findings to further round of validation process with the respective sectoral stakeholders to enable consensus building between the two levels of government on the emerging sectoral concerns. To necessitate then effective IGR consultations, IGRTC jointly with State Department for Devolution through the Principal Secretary held consultative meetings with the respective Principal Secretaries on 17 January 2024 to appraise them of the program progress and findings in readiness for the rollout of the validation sessions. The consultations were subsequently concluded, leading to the sharing of the delineated sector reports with the line ministries, departments, and agencies through cabinet secretaries for reference and concurrence. There have since been commendable feedback on the reports of which IGRTC has considered. And if you can see your screen, we are sharing the elements or which were previously unbundled. You'll be able to see that
on functions analyzed and unbundled, then there are main functions which are assigned by the fourth schedule, so that you're able to track between what is in the constitution, what is assigned in the constitution, and now you realize what we have unbundled and what we have been able to analyze. So we are sharing that through the screen, and you, through that process of further validation, after the recall of the legal notice, we have been able to unbundle quite a number of functions, but we are left now with a few that then we have said through the legal notices, these are the issues that are still pending to build consensus on. And you will be able to read that in agriculture and blue economy, the resolved sectoral issues are fishing, which there is no consensus on the functional jurisdiction of the two levels of government on the following functions. One, registration of artisanal fishing vessels, licensing of fishermen, development of fish landing sites, and charging and levying of fish. Animal health as well is still there. You'll be able to see there is the position that has been held by the ministry, and there is the position by the county governors through COG. But if you will notice to the next page, you will notice that the functions that are still need consensus are not more than 5 functions or elements of function that needs to be built consensus. You will see there is also health, that on the issue of the syndemic diseases and control. We also have lands, housing and urban development, with the function 8 part 2 is assigned to the county government as county planning development, and also you realize it is still in national government. Thirdly, you will realize also land surveying, mapping, boundaries, and fencing. And however, it is I would be quick to note here that some of these elements that consensus has not been built yet, we have agreed that we are going to proceed to gazette all the other functions and elements of function that consensus has been built as we continue to build consensus on this. The reason why we will then recall the legal notice would be for purpose of such. If we had issued that legal notice and any entity, any level of government, either national or county government, went to court because of as an element of a function, then the entirety of the legal notice would have been rendered null. And so progressively, we have then agreed that we are going to be able to gazette functions separately, and we'll leave the functions that are still need consensus to be built for further consultation. Fourth, you will notice wildlife, tourism, and culture. There are some sectoral issues that are be solved. Wildlife being a national function. However, Wildlife Conservation and Management Act 2013 assigned county governments the mandate. So there are some of the issues which also we find some of the laws that have been enacted post 2010 are inhibiting the transfer of functions or are speaking contrary to the constitution. And so the position would be some of these legislations we have earmarked for amendment, and we are hoping that the National Assembly and Senate will pick that up. Fifth is on gender, youth, sports, and social services, where you realize function 4, part 2, which is assigned to the county government as cultural activities. And you will see also sports and cultural activities and facilities. But there is a disagreement between the national government and the and county government on then what constitutes the promotion of sports and sports education. So there are some of these elements in the law or in the constitution, as well as the functions as identified and unbundled, still need to be built consensus on. So those are just highlights of where we still have some work to do as IGRTC to be able to build consensus between the two levels of government to be able to progress. Then to necessitate effective, as I mentioned, the consultation we did with the PS, the PSS, all the PSS, and now we have identified and reviewed 94 pieces of legislation across different sectors, which will address some of the gaps that you realize as screened there, which had been deemed to inhibit effective implementation of devolution. And we have made recommendations to review process, and we expect that the National Assembly will be able to pick that up and handle. And those 94 pieces of legislation that we have been able to earmark, anyone who would be interested to know their pieces of legislation, we can be able to share to them. And as Evans had earlier asked, where is our where can IGRTC be able to partner with the CSOs? That is one of the avenues that we can be able to partner with the civil society organizations to pick up the issues that were mentioned or the 94 pieces of legislation through public participation and ensure that all what we are talking about, the legislations are aligned with the Constitution so that it does not inhibit further implementation of the Constitution. It is then expected that the costing of functions, which I have mentioned, which will follow once we do the legal notice on the transfer of the functions, then we will be able to start the process of costing of functions. And like I mentioned earlier on, we are hoping that there would be a consensus on the mechanism that we are going to use. Our hope is that the scientific costing model will be adopted. And already this is a conversation that has been discussed at IBEC. In the last IBEC, this matter was brought to fore, and we have already started conversation with CRA on how then we will do the costing of the functions in the legal notices that I have mentioned that will be non-contentious. We will start with what is non-contentious, the functions that have been agreed on between the two levels of government. And once we have a consensus with CRA on the costing, then of course, Parliament will come on board, and finally Treasury on how we will be able to have then the resources to follow functions. The objective of the exercise then, on the overall objective of the exercise was to complete the transfer of all pending constitutionally assigned functions to the county governments to ensure that the functions are effectively identified and transferred following specific objectives were undertaken. One was the identification of constitutionally assigned functions to the county governments, which was still pending transfer. Like I said earlier on, TA started, but they were not able to conclude the entire process of transfer of functions. We also did analysis of the identified constitutionally assigned functions to the county governments, which were left also. Further, we clarified on the previously transferred functions, which were deemed unclear by the two levels of government. Again, we reviewed and identified the pieces of legislation which were developed either prior to 2010 constitution promulgation or those also which have been developed post the 2010 constitution. And then we also be able to identify the resources. Like I said, the mantra in devolution is resources follow functions. So as soon as we are done with the transfer of functions, we are also in the process of identifying the resources which are pending for transfer. And after the identification of the resources, there's also a whole new process, a whole process on the transfer of functions, just on transfer of the resources, including assets and liabilities, competencies, human resource. That process has a life of its own, independent from the transfer of functions. Now, just to highlight to you the findings then through the sector engagements that we held, and on a preliminary finding on the resources that we are talking about, and I'm sure this would be of interest. You've had the Council of Governors talking about 273, 270 billion that are in conversation about the resources that we have been able to identify. You will look, these are the estimates through what I mentioned earlier on, budget rationalization. So you will see in sector, water sector, there are resources about 58 billion. We have roads, about 10, trade, 4.8, tourism and wildlife, about that 1, agriculture, 105, health is giving us about 3.2, energy, 59, lands and public works, we have no budget identified yet, and a total of 272 billion. So the anticipation is, once we conclude the process of transfer of the functions, these are some of the resources that would be following those functions. But we'll be quick to mention that this is from budget rationalization, not scientific costing. Over 94 pieces of legislation, as I mentioned, also will be able to be reviewed. And at the tail end, we expect then that once we have done the transfer of functions, costing or budget rationalization, then also those legislations to be reviewed for us to be able to say conclusively, we have been able to transfer the function and the resources. And it speaks to what everyone in this country is asking, is national government holding on to resources that are due to the counties? And the answer is all functions that were transferred as of 2013, resources identified at that time were also transferred in line with the functions that were transferred. The further clarification and delineation that we are currently doing as IGRTC also will mean there could be additional resources to the county government, or that are due to the functions that will be transferred to the county government. So in a nutshell, that is the process that we have been able to undertake on the issue of the transfer of functions. And like I mentioned, as it is now, the status where we are is that we have been able to share our draft legal notices to the Attorney General's office, and it is expected that that should be gazetted anytime soon. And as I said, we are only expecting gazettement of functions that have been agreed between the two levels of government, and the five elements that I shared with you earlier on. Those will be left for further consultations, and there would be a subsequent legal notice to be able to give effect to the transfer of the same. But as it stands, like I mentioned, we have already started conversation with CRA on the costing of the functions then that we are forwarded for gazettement, so that as soon as the budget process commences, we are looking at, hopefully, if this process begins in earnest before the budget cycle starts, that we would be able to have CRA consider these functions in their next allocation of revenues to the counties. Dr. Kosure, if then you will allow me then, before we go to the Q&A, to highlight to our participants a few of our achievements as IGRTC that we have been able to handle in just a quick readout so that we are able to go to the Q&A to be able to address the issues that will be able to come. One is that we are, as I mentioned, we are currently transferring also assets related to museum function to the benefiting counties. If you notice, when I read through the legal notices that have been issued, we have concluded the museum function transfer, and now we are in the process of concluding the transfer of assets that are due to that function to the 47 county governments, and also those which we have a few, one museum, the National Museum here. Some of the resources also will be transferred to the counties. Similarly, IGRTC has concluded the transfer of related facilities, assets, financial resources to the county government on library function. 61 libraries have been transferred to 33 county governments. And on the 9th, the National and County Government Coordinating Summit in February 2023 resolved, and we were directed that through with the SDD, coordinate the completion of valuation of assets, both movable and immovable, which an exercise which we have been able to conclude as we speak. And we are currently doing a phase-out transfer of the motor vehicles, both movable and immovable, to the counties. And the valuation of the movable assets, for that case, plant equipment and machinery, which was undertaken by mechanical engineers and completed across the 47 counties in August. The exercise identified over 8,000 motor vehicles with a consolidated value of 3 billion. And just to clarify on that, we were able to identify, value motor vehicles which were held in custody by county governments. Either the assets were handed over to the county government in line with functions which were transferred, or there were those which were taken custody by the county government and national government. And we are in the process now. I'm sure all of us, if you agree with me, if you were to visit any county government headquarters as we speak, you'll be able to see there is a jungle of motor vehicles that are lying there, dead or scrap metal. The reason why we want to fast track is now that the model of accounting, we have moved to accrual accounting, where it is expected that every county government also has an asset register and may be able to have valued assets. We want to transfer these motor vehicles, which are still movable, to the county government with the values, so that now we are also helping them to be able to address the audit queries that have been consistently raised by the Auditor General. With the aim of facilitating the process of transfer of the movable assets, then IGRTC has coordinated the handover of the assets, evaluated reports, and copies of ownership documents to all the 47 county governments, which was done between April and May of 2024. This was to secure the valued assets and implement the report recommendations and enable counties, as I mentioned, to update the assets register. Currently, we are engaging NTSA with a view to fast-tracking the transfer of the ownership status for the assets. And additionally, IGRTC has also written to the counties to identify over 4,000 assets that could not be traced during the evaluation process. And I can report that we have had feedback on what was the gap of 4,000 vehicles. As it is now, we have been able to identify quite a number of them. And I can assure the participants here that we will, at the end of the day, ensure that all assets that were registered or were in the asset register or which belong to the counties found and traced and also valued. Then to ensure the conclusion of the valuation exercise for fixed assets for the 25 counties that had not been completed in phase 1, together with phase 2 targeting counties, a roadmap has been established and was developed to target the phase 2 for additional counties from phase 2. The exercise, which was carried out between February to March 2024 under the legislative SDD, has also been able to do, and we are about to conclude the first 30 counties on the assets, buildings, and land. As we speak now, we are also undertaking transfer of assets of public primary schools, which were previously managed by the defunct municipal councils in 7 counties. We have been able to identify 416 schools that jointly have public primary schools and ECDs in 6 counties. To this end, IGRTC is embarking on physical verification of assets on the public primary schools to ensure that transfer. And of course, we would, through coordination and collaboration, that there will be joint utilization between the primary and the CECD. Through this process, IGRTC has learned quite a lot. And just to share with you a few lessons that we've been able to learn through the transfer of labor function is one, that there is disparity in PE budget and payroll amount. Most counties observed that there was a disparity in the funds allocated and the actual payroll amount forwarded for integration. There is delay in payment of salaries for the devolved staff. Payroll system intricacies that now that we are Treasury issued a circular to the counties prohibiting use of manual processes on payroll voucher to pay salaries, which ultimately limited the county's abilities to offset the salaries of the transferred staff on interim basis, because these are staff that we transferred before their integration into IPPD. Of course, we also have third-party remittances, the staff being transferred, add financial obligations that also needed to have been offset. And through that also, with the foregoing then experience in the transfer of the library function to the county governments, it is important to note that the transfer process of the remaining functions will not be a one-time event. It will be phased out to allow for an iterative approach that incorporates intergovernmental consultations and collaboration. The transfer process of the function and the respective sub-components will only be successful if the necessary inhibiting legislations are aligned to the Constitution and directly correspond with the functional assignment provided in Schedule 4. With this exercise, while IGRTC recognizes that transfer of functions is a perpetual exercise, and I'm sure Judy had mentioned that, the transfer of functions related to transition phase of devolution will have been completed. With the evaluation of knowledge, future exploration of the function is welcome. The steps then that we are going to take as IGRTC, one is to mitigate on the associated risks. IGRTC shall be publishing the legal notices in a phased out manner per function as assigned in Schedule 4. That's what I mentioned earlier, that to avoid litigation or where we'll have court challenges, we are seeking that we are going to ensure that the legal notices are published per function, so that in case there is any challenge on a function, it does not stop the implementation or the transfer of other functions and resources. IGRTC intends to roll out the respective sector forums to provide a platform for further consultation on the pending and unresolved sectoral concerns. The 5 of them that we talked about, we will continually engage on that. And of course, for the already transferred functions and facilities which is including Musham function, the corresponding resources have been identified and captured in the budget and the policy statement for transfer to the county government on additional grants. And in a nutshell, is to say IGRTC is picking up the pace very well on the transfer of the pending functions, identification and transfer of attendant resources, costing of functions identified, clarified, and delineated. And we are partnering with CRA and also working with IBEC to ensure that at least in the next budget financial year, or in once the budget cycle, within the budget cycle, that is considered. And I'm sure this in the next IBEC, we will be able to have a feedback. Again, is to invite this team that one of the mandates of IGRTC that we need to go at this level is the evaluation, assessment of the implementation of the devolved functions. So that as we speak, Kibet in his comments mentioned the service delivery. The question we should be asking is health being implemented in Baringo County as it is envisioned in the Constitution? Is health being implemented any better in Homa Bay County compared to Kericho County? What is Nandi County doing better in roads that Lamu County should have known or should be learning as a county? And are all these being implemented in line with the Constitution? Are the resources that have been assigned to these functions, are they sufficient? And if they are sufficient, are the service delivery reflective of the same? If they are insufficient, what are the gaps that have been identified and needs intervention? If interventions are needed, where are the interventions required? Who is to intervene? Now, that is the phase that we are in IGRTC, where we would be inviting our partners, the civil society organizations, that we start this process. It is one of the targets or work plans for IGRTC in this financial year. We hope to commence that process with at least 2 or 3 functions. And MACU, we are not only assessing the implementation of the functions by county governments alone. When we say devolved functions, it also means there is a component or there are elements of functions that are left with national government. And when we talk about health, as we assess the implementation of the devolved health functions, what are left with national government? Standardization, policy. Are they doing their part? Where are the gaps? So that we are able at the tail end to be able to say devolution has worked on function 1, 2, 3. These are the identified gaps. These are the interventions required. If there are any legislative interventions, that will be addressed. If there are any policy interventions, it should be able to be addressed. Resource interventions, it should be able to be addressed. But we are saying we need to form a basis, and that can only be through the assessment of the implementation of those functions. And that is one avenue, as mentioned by the convener of CSOs, that what would be the role of the CSOs. And like I've also mentioned in my presentation, some of the things that we are discussing here, Kenyans were very keen and very interested between 2010 and 2014 on devolution. Every Kenyan understood what devolution means. Everyone was interested to know what national government and county governments are doing. As we speak, is not the same case. So is to say, we would be inviting as IGRTC, our partners and the CSOs, that there is need to go back and do further sensitization and civic education to the public to understand what then is devolution. As we speak, I was a privilege to work in a county government 2013 to 2022. All of you will agree with me, between 2013 and 2017, what we saw in Nairobi NMS case, majority of Kenyans were of the opinion that the national government was usurping its power. The truth of the matter is, there are provisions in law that allows one level of government to transfer or delegate implementation of a function to another level of government. As we speak, Kosure mentioned, we are currently handling matters where national government has expressed interest in delegating the construction of secondary school in Mandera County to Mandera County government. We are handling a matter where Murang'a County government have expressed interest in transferring TVET, two TVET facilities to national government. We are handling now a matter where national government has expressed interest in delegating and transferring some elements of wildlife and park management to Kajiado County government. If you went back to 2013, 2017, both the leadership in the county governments, and I would dare say even national government, if such a conversation was mentioned, it would be a serious dispute where people would be saying, national government is not doing right. We are not adhering to the constitution. We are not implementing the constitution as it is. But then these are the provisions in law. And we are living with a reality now that we are saying some of these functions can be implemented better by one level of government than the other, which was assigned in law. So as we push for the implementation of the constitution as well, we are coming to the reality that some of the clauses in the constitution allows one level of government to implement a function for another level of government. But there is a process to that, and IGRTC is available and is currently guiding that process. So those are the avenues that I would want to interest the participants to be looking out to on how that processes are going to be done, where public participation is required, that it is done, and also to sensitize the public on such provisions of law so that we don't have conversations that really are limited or are inhibiting the processes that we are carrying on. So with that then, Kosure, trying to keep on time. I am not sure I've been a good time manager. I wish to thank all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daktari. But before I let you go, can you touch something a little on regional blocks legalities and even the issue of Amboseli, Masai Mara, and Narok and Kajiado County, you know, the issues. And lastly, the issue of Kenya Wildlife Service and Taita Taveta. What is the position of those three issues? Just in a very short summary.
Thank you, Dr. Kosure. By the sentiments that I made towards the tail end, I was alluding to those issues that you have raised, but in particular, the Amboseli matter or Kajiado matter, this is a presidential pronouncement to transfer the park management to Kajiado County government. There has been a task force that was working on that, a ministerial task force, but as we speak now, that matter is before IGRTC to process that. And like I said, if all of you read through IGR Act section 25 to 30, you would be able to realize that as we say, national park is a function assigned to national government. In this case, Amboseli, being a national government asset or function, wildlife management being a national government function, the national government have expressed through the pronunciation of the president that they would wish that Kajiado County government carries on the management of the park. But remember what we are saying in law, the constitutional responsibility still remains with the national government. So we are in the process of transferring the management some elements which will be agreed between the two levels of government, between national government and the county government of Kajiado, will be able to transfer both the functions or elements of function as well as also resources. So that is a process that is envisioned to be concluded within the next 1 month. Again, you talked about Taita Taveta. I think on the issue of Taita Taveta, it was an issue of revenue sharing that was pronounced also by the president. And we have had consultations between, there have been consultations between Taita Taveta county government and the national government, represented by the State Department for Wildlife. And already there is an MOU that has been agreed on how that is going to be implemented. And by hopefully there is an indication by Friday on 4th that MOU is going to be signed on the issue of revenue sharing with Taita Taveta.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Daktari. And in conclusion, I think you have covered almost everything that you are expected to cover, and very ably, and I think which is going to generate a lot of discussion. You've talked to issues of completion of transfer of functions that is ongoing, the issue of the source to follow function and identification of up to 272.2 billion Kenya shillings as the resources that might end up following the functions once completed. Review and amendment of laws which are ultra-vires the constitution, the issue of sectors that are now ready for gazettement, being in the office of the Attorney General, and I hope you'll continue pushing for those sectors to be gazetted so that the resources should actually start following the functions. You've also alluded to issue of remaining functions that are now under discussion, and after they've been agreed upon, they will be gazetted. And we are also very happy that at least you are going sector-wise in terms of gazettements, so that sectors that are completely done and agreed upon are not affected in the generalities of doing a wholesome gazettement, where one sector might have issues and affecting the others that are okay. So this is very great. The information you gave on the transferred libraries, for example, 63 libraries to 33 counties done. You also talked to lessons that you have learned, and in terms of your way forward, I think you are looking at finalization of these legal notices and rolling out of the sectors forums, which I want to believe that by November end or thereabout, you should be able to have rolled out about 5 sectors. Thank you for giving also examples on how we are dealing with Article 187, that where ground things are coming out to practicality, that some functions actually can be done better by either level of government, by one level of government, other than the one that it was given. This is very great. Now, before we move into plenary discussion, I just want us to go to look at some of the comments that we have received from members out there. Very quickly, there are quite a number. I think one colleague is saying, good morning, you are encouraged to include the name of the organization. Oh, sorry, that's something else. Those are instructions on the house. But the issues is from one Zach Gaya. Has the meeting start? Oh, no, that's okay. And now the next is Chris Owala. Actually, this is the element of a question. County capacities to deliver is the work of the national government. Devolution will not deliver for Kenyans without political will. That's comment from Owala. Then Kimaio, Tony, incredible eye-opening discussions there. Asante sana. The gray areas need more effort. Thank you. Evans is here saying, will the 94 legislations require to be discussed one by one, which may take a lot of time, or can IGRTC do an omnibus amendment bill? Kimaio is back again. Are there timelines on the unresolved transfer of functions? Oh, that is Dorothy Jebet. That requires an answer, Daktari. Then Chris Owala, the problem is political will. 12 years, we can't be discussing one thing forever. Then who is benefiting from the status quo? And then it is actually 12 years since the transition authority was dissolved. It is like being on a roundabout going in circles. Then I think it's Evans again. I know, I think you wanted to say, I now understand the root cause of financing gaps in devolved governments. If we used historical costs, then we might have missed some unique elements of devolved governments. Now, how far are we with the scientific costing, and how long do we need to complete? But I agree that we can start with the budget rationalization route as a low-hanging fruit in regards to devolving more resources, even as we expedite the scientific costing. Zakagaya, what are the challenges in ensuring that the standards are maintained in the functions that are being devolved, that is, the library services? What's the role of IGRTC in this? And I think next question, I think those are the questions. Very good, active members. This is great. If CEO has any answer to any of those, then you might straight away go into it, then we start the plenary. Or any other member, by the way, because this is a discussion, any other member, not necessarily even IGRTC.
All right, Dr. Kosure.
Yes, sir.
Let me respond to the three questions. I think a majority of them were comments. One is on will the bills be handled independently? No, it is an omnibus bill. We have recommended as an omnibus bill because there would be some small sections. When we talk about 94 pieces of legislation, you might find that it is a small one or two clauses in a legislation. So you might not want to process the whole bill independently. So we have put that as an omnibus. So the 94 pieces of legislation are in an omnibus bill. Secondly, what are the timelines on the unresolved matters? I think this is making reference to the ones that we have not been able to build consensus on the 7 elements of the functions. I think from where we sit as IGRTC, during the next summit, we are going to report on these unresolved matters, and we'll be able to get direction. So you can be able to get a response to this as soon as we are done with the next summit, because that would be the way to handle. Where we have not been able to build consensus, we'll take it to the summit, and then summit will give direction.
Go ahead, CEO.
All right. I think the last one is the challenges on standardization or building standards. And like I mentioned, when we carry on, when we are able to do what I mentioned at the tail end, where I invited all of us to participate and to be interested in on the assessment of the implementation, we will be able then now to be able to say really where are the gaps on the issue of standardization, of policy, implementation, or even resourcing for these functions that have gone to the counties. Because all of us, you will agree with me. I'm sure if we were to have a chat with someone who comes from my county and who has been able to visit another county, you'll be able to say some counties are doing one function better than the other one. But are there standards to that? Are they supposed to be the same? Are they supposed to be done in a particular manner? So the issue of standardization, I think also, remember, we also have independence of the counties, but on where needs standardization, the national government has an exclusive role in that. And so those are the gaps that we need to be able to address. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody that might raise any other issue around that line? Any other? Third one? I can see somebody saying the constitution is clear on the functions. Why is national government holding on the functions of county government? E.g., why should the national government get into paying health workers, promoters? What is the position of IGRTC on NGCDF and the devolution? Wow. Who will take on to that?
I think Kosure,
yes,
on the issue of the payment of health promoters, I think this was a program that was agreed on between the national government and the county government. Just the way there was also an agreement or during the COVID time on how to handle remember the officers that were employed by national government during COVID time. So I think this is a program that had been agreed on between the two levels of government. And the constitution also allows that. And that's why through the Article 6, the independence of the counties also, they have been encouraged to be able to collaborate between the counties. So that is one of the programs that both national and county governments consented to and agreed on the implementation of such.
Daktari, you are muted.
Sorry for that. I'm saying that now we can go into plenary session where we'll be looking into contribution.
Excuse me, Dr. Kosure, please check, we have what, I don't know whether you can see this on your screen, Q&A section. You had read the questions from the chat.
I wanted us to go into the discussion first, then as I look at the Q&A.
Okay, thank you.
For purposes of saving time, if allowed.
It's okay, Asante.
Yeah, everything will be addressed. There's should be no problem at all. So, because some of the discussion might even answer some of the questions that might have come up. So, can I call on Evans to go at it first?
No, I think for me, Daktari, my questions are addressed by the presentation and also I have put the comments. So maybe I'll allow my members to come.
Very good. Members of the CSO, without order, any member.
You want us to ask questions?
Thank you so much. Allow me to go first, just to give my view.
Yes.
I'm Kennedy Hakaba Omkunda. I work with the Ahadi Governance and Research Consultants, and I also work with the Community United for All Development. We do a lot of governance work, and we do a lot of inclusion work. And I will ask my question in the context of the three. However, I also support Kenya National Association for the Deaf, and the chairman is actually very close to me, and he wanted to participate directly, but we realized that you didn't have a sign language interpreter. So he wrote and asked me to just read as he could have said. I didn't want to raise it because I had raised it last time in the webinar, so I thought I can become monotonous. So the chairman asked me, he's called Nixon Kakiri. He told me that he leads a group of a deaf community in Kenya, and he is worried that disability is not bundled. So that has left the person with disability somewhere hanging. And he gives an example that while we have National Council for Persons with Disability under the Ministry of Social Protection, giving services direct and also doing policies, we also have counties with substantive chief officers in charge of disability sector and providing services as well. He says that this confusion he feels can only be sorted out by IGRTC coming in the way you did the disaster management and bundling the function properly so that it is known where the person with disability lies and who is supposed to do what. Number two, so I have asked what the chair has asked because it's just here with me. Number two, maybe just as I jump to number 2, maybe we should also be considering having a sign language interpreter in most of your webinar so that the deaf community and persons with disability can actually participate. Number 2, when the chair, the CEO talked about the 200+ billion that are meant to be devolved, what rings in my mind is the ongoing case in Kakamega where a sweeper, I'm actually told he's not a sweeper, where a sweeper is being followed for having stolen or amassed a wealth of over 600 million. I'm wondering whether we are devolving this corruption. And for me, my dad is in Huisero, a place called Kakamega. And sometimes when I go home and he says that I wished this was being done by national government, I'm asking, are we in the business of devolving more or also following up and finding out what is being, what are we, how far are we with what was even devolved? I think in my submission, I will say, I know the CEO talked about it, and by the way, I'm a decentralist myself, so I'm just not talking. I think it is an opportunity for development partners and IGRTC to pause and just make a bold move and audit the already devolved functions so that it is clear how far are we. I know we have had some few pockets of audit of public participation, but yes, I'm finishing up. But it is important that we pause and devolve. Now, I will finish by saying that as we devolve these functions, can we also ensure that actually the services are available, are affordable, and it is devoid of corruption? That I'm not going to hear that in my county, Kakamega, we also have another 600 million lost. I think for me, that is my take.
Thank you very much, Kennedy, my good brother from Huisero. You are spot on, and your issue is, but one thing that worried me is when you say the disability is not unbundled. So I don't know, it was not one of the 4th schedule functions, so that's a bit tricky. Then the need for sign language interpreter, I think that's something that the team might take on. And the question is, how far are we in devolution? I don't know whether that is a question we can answer within this short period that we have, but something that we should be able to chew and see in the next processes, how best can we come up with some analysis to show how far we are with devolution. I do not think it is something that we can answer here, but when you do what is called physical observation across the country, then you can also make some feeling around how far we are with devolution. And then the issue of affordability of services, again, I don't know whether it is within the scope of this meeting, but it is something that we can start thinking around when we bring in issues of assessments, so that we can see whether the citizens are actually getting devolved function services in affordable manner. Any other intervention, question, observation, comments?
Okay. My name is Dorothy Chebet of Elimu Kwanza Initiative here in Baringo. I would like to thank Dr. Chepkwony for the illuminating presentation. However, I have an axe to grind with him concerning the manner in which transfer of functions are done by his organization. I am referring to the transfer of the libraries to the devolved systems. Like Baringo County is now managing the library that was being managed previously by the national government. It is 1 year down the line since the transfer of that function was done. And I must say that my feeling is that the way it was done, it was hurried, it was done in a hurry, it was done without really considering the staff and the services that the people of Kabarnet and Baringo at large have been receiving from this library for years, since the library was launched by the late President Daniel Arap Moi. And we are very proud people that we have a library, a big one here. But since it was transferred to the county government 1 year ago, or 1 year and a couple of months, this library has gone down. Some of us do researches. So many people depend on this library. But since it was devolved, morale among the staff is low because I am a user of this library. Since it was devolved, there is no Wi-Fi. And you know, Wi-Fi drives the library. People come and pay to use the library because it has Wi-Fi. People who are doing their PhDs, people doing their masters, we used to meet there to study and do research. MTC students, teachers from Kabarnet High School, that is where people meet to study and do research. But 1 year down the line, there is no Wi-Fi. There are no services. Everything has grinded to a halt. And we are really wondering, how did you transfer this function without ensuring that the county government is ready to receive the library? It's like you just dropped it like a hot potato on their hands, and they were like, now what are we going to do with this function? You should have first ensured that the county government is ready to receive, is ready to pay the people, the transfer of the staff from the national government to the county. It took them like 4 months without salary before they were paid. And it was really heart-wrenching scenario, which I hope it won't happen again when you transfer a function. Secondly, I'm worried about the health sector I think throughout the devolved systems in Kenya. It's a devolved system, it's a devolved function, the health sector. But then you find the national government pretends that it's a favor it's doing to the devolved systems by doling out budgetary allocations that cannot even be enough to run this the health sector. And this creates gaps, financial gaps, that I don't know who will fill if it's not the national government. So those are my worries. And also you said that there were 4,000 assets that could not be traced when you are transferring some functions. And then you said that you found them. And then they have not been found. All of them have not been found. So where are they hidden? So that you have to use a tooth comb to look for them. And then their assets, public assets. Who hides these things? Did the employees run with them? Did someone register them in their names? So that now, when you are transferring function, you are all over the place, groping in the dark. You don't know what you are going to do to transfer the functions to the county government. What is happening with those 4,000 assets? And I'm sure there are more in other sectors. There's the transfer of assets of public schools, formerly run by the municipalities in 6 counties. How far are you? And which counties are these? Because here in Kabarnet, we also have such as schools. Mumetufikia mabado. Okay, thank you very much. And as I conclude, I would like your office, Dr. Chepkoech, to have communication, to up the communication with the counties, so that we don't have lapses in communication. And now those people working in those functions are left without the wherewithal of what to do. Thank you very much, Dr. Chepkoech and company.
Dr. Kosure?
Tariq, can I pick a bit?
Dr. Kosuri, I thought
No,
if I can respond to the
please
two.
go ahead. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. I want first to, if you, Dora, we can take that after I respond. I will be quick to in response. All right, thank you. Let me address the two issues that have been raised by Kennedy. One is to really, I think I would say we apologize for not having provision for persons who required support on disability, those who have disability. I think that is noted. We will be able to make that correction moving into the future, sign language and the like. I think also for our partners that we should take note of that so that in future we don't have such gaps. So that I'm sure Kennedy has said this is the second time, so you can be sure the third time we will have been able to comply. Secondly is, of course, on the issue of the disability, where that element is, and I think it has been mentioned that under social protection, which is in national government, and of course, if you noticed in the presentation, Kennedy, you notice amongst the issues that are still in contention is on social protection, sports, and youth. And you mentioned that the counties also have officers assigned the responsibility of coordination, or you find even CEC in charge of youth and persons with disability. And what is the role of national government? To what extent then does the county government implement? Are resources available? I think amongst the issues that I've said are yet to be consented on or agreed upon between the two levels of government is that one. And if you allow, during the discussion on that matter, now that you said you are with the chair coordinating the deaf community in this country, we would be interested to have you on board, so that we want to hear from you, where would that best be implemented? Remember what I said earlier on. This function is assigned to the national government. But there is a reality now that some of these functions or elements of a function can be implemented better by the other level of government. Or better still, one level of government can delegate to either, or even transfer to either. So those are the conversations that I think we might want to have that discussion, but it is up to the two levels of government to have a conversation about, but your input would be very important and critical during that discussion. So allow us to take note of your concern, and at the point when we will be doing stakeholder engagement, we will want to have your participation and input on that. To Dorothy from Baringo. Now, you see, Dorothy is very keen on the issue of library function. If Dorothy, as I mentioned earlier on, the big bang that we went to in 2013, counties were grappling a lot on the implementation of the so many functions that was transferred to the counties. And it has also happened on the issue of the libraries and the museums, which we have just been able to transfer fully the function, as well as also the resources, including the human resource, which you have alluded to. On the issue of the delay of the salaries, of course, there would have been shock from the staff, because at the point when we transfer the function and the human resource, we also identified the financial resources that were to be transferred to the libraries or the counties where the libraries exist. Mark you, some of the counties do not have these libraries, but the counties that had the libraries, physical libraries, as well as also human resource, we identified the resources that were to be released to those counties. However, unfortunately, during the budget making process at the Senate and national government, some of the resources that we had identified for specific counties were consolidated and divided amongst the 47 counties, which then disenfranchised the counties that had libraries, and those counties that do not have libraries got resources, yet they did not have those libraries. Subsequently, the National Assembly reviewed that anomaly after some while, and so the for the 2 or 3 months that the counties could not be able to access those resources to be able to pay their salaries, it would be expected that the staff morale will be down. And now that they were in the middle of nowhere, they don't belong to the county, they have already left the national government. However, through the cooperation and coordination with the county government, through the office of the county secretary for Baringo and other counties, that issue has been solved. The only thing now that we need to ask is, was the county government ready? Like you asked, was it ready to be able to implement that function? And we are saying on the issue of capacity building, it is a mandate of the national government. And if any county government feels that there is need for capacity building, for them to be able to absorb and implement the function, the national government should be available to be able to build that capacity. Additionally, is that also, as we progressively move, I had invited all of us that also to what Kennedy was saying. You mentioned something, and I would want to address the two for both of you. Is our county governments implementing as it should? And I asked that question before. Kennedy has said, are we devolving more money, which would be cleaned by the cleaners, as he used his word, to use his word? But where we sit as IGRTC, our mandate is very simple. Transfer functions as assigned by law. And again, I say one of our functions, if you go through IGRA Act, one of our mandate is to be able to do what I said earlier on. Kennedy used the word audit. I use the word evaluate, because we will evaluate the implementation of the functions. And that is the point now where we are able to say, Kennedy, after that, we are done that, because our mandate as IGRTC, Summit, as the secretary of the Summit, is to be able to carry out an assessment and do a report to the Summit. From the Summit is where we'll have recommendations. And these recommendations done, in this case, if we identify from our report or from assessment that there is lack of capacity in county A, B, C, or in all the 47 county government, then a decision will be made by the Summit on how then to be able to improve on that, whether there will be more resourcing or where national government would be expected to do more capacity building. Also, at that point, when you talk about, Kennedy, when you talk about some of these functions need to go to national government, we will not be able to make that decision as IGRTC unless it is based on fact and there is a process to it that I said earlier on. The reality is some of these functions can be better implemented by one level of government, not the one that has been assigned. But that only requires a process to begin, a report to be developed, a resolution to be made by Summit, National Assembly, and the Senate will also be able to consider that report. And since all of us are in Kenya, we for sure know there are some of the elements that this far we agree that it is better either implemented by national government or county government. And that's what I said. I invite all of us to this phase in devolution, where now we need to assess and make decisions based on the reality on ground, like Kenyans would say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that answer. But what do we do? Thank you for the. Yes, please. Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Ksure.
Hello, I think I'm now back. Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you, Daktari. Sorry, Chris. We had someone who was just concluding after the response from the CEO. Dr. Kosure, yes, you can come in.
I'm now back. Thank you. Pole, tulikuwa na technical hitch. Can we, I don't know, I might not even know where we've reached. And the time is also not on our side now. We are supposed to finish in the next 1 minute. I don't know whether there are quite a number of questions.
We had Chris who wanted to come in. I don't know whether we concluded with you. There's a lady who was speaking. Maybe if you can conclude on your statement, then Chris can come in, Daktari, then you can just step in after Chris.
Very good, very good. Okay, let the lady finish, then Chris comes in.
You're muted.
Sorry.
No, we are
So
waiting for
that-
the.
Oh, sorry. So I was saying, thank you, Dr. Kosure, for your response. It is clear, crystal clear. But I have an observation or a comment that once you people transfer functions, don't just drop it and leave. I think it's paramount to stay the course with the county government, maybe for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, until the transfer function is complete, and you know that that transfer function can run on itself, and everything it has everything that is needed to run in the account, not just transferring it and then you go to another deliverable in your office, you transfer another one and leave them like that. Just stay the course a bit before you leave the government to run it on itself, the county government to run it on itself. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I want to ask that we add some 10 minutes. Is it possible? Because time is over. Can we get some 10 minutes, Dora?
Yes, if we the participants are also okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Participants, we are okay, I hope. 1 or 2 answers, yes or no. Silence means acceptance. Now, Chris, before I go to Tony Kimayo.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Mine, I think this discussion needs to continue more often. And I wanted to refer the chief executive of RTGRC to the Russia Kisumu Provincial Hospital, which is supposed to be a case study of a transfer of function, of which concurrence the governor has done a gazettement, which I don't think is right. At this level, there are a lot of confusion. So in their realm, is a Russia a transferred function to national government as a parastatal, or is still a function? When I talk of Russia, I mean Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital, or is it still a function of Kisumu County? And if so, how should it happen? Because many a times the functions are transferred silently without public participation, without the input from the public. Two, there are a lot of regional authorities, and I spoke to this earlier there. If KO, the Lake Basin, and all these, the functions they are doing are more or less the devolved functions, and they are denying counties resources to effectively plan for service delivery so that they could be monitored. Three, we all know that if the functions are devolved and the other functions are national, any other function that it is residual remain a national government function. And it's a duty of the national government to make sure that they are delivered. If you look at the feature, if you look at how Daktari was trying to explain, the chief executive, that the health, which was a function of, which is a devolved function, if the county government need to agree with the national government to take their functions, I think this process needs to be done in a procedural manner. And I want to draw his attention to the equipment that were being bought for the hospitals, for the county. The governors were complaining, which means there was no consultation. It was a dictatorial in nature. And if we continue this, then the autonomy, distinct function of the county, which the law says the county are distinct but interdependent, is not going to be there. This will suffocate devolution. And I say that if the RTGRC are there to protect devolution, then they must make sure that the process is done in a way that does not leave any doubt. And how these things are happening, even the national government taking the health promoters, it's a condition. It was never consultative. It was because two centers of power are making the payment. So I think this is a waste of resources, and the RTGRC must put their house in order. Thank you.
Dr. Kosure?
Yes, CEO.
Okay, I know time is running out on us, but just a quick one on what Chris has said. I think Chris has a clear understanding really on some of these functions in the counties. And specifically, I would want to address the issue that he mentioned at the beginning on the KCRH, that is Kisumu County Referral Hospital. And I think what he mentioned that, or we are aware as well that Kisumu county government have expressed their desire to transfer the Jatrok, is it Jatrok, to national government. But I would want to refer Chris to what I said earlier on. It is true that one level of government can transfer an implementation or a function or delegate elements of a function to one level of government. And I did give some examples. And if Kisumu County government have expressed that desire, they will only be guided to through by Section 26 of IGRA Act. And I would invite Chris to take time to peruse through that they might have expressed their interest, and now they're in the process of actualizing that transfer. But the process is guided by law. So the issue would be, has it been concluded yet as Kisumu County government finally transferred to the national government? I would say no. We are in the process of guiding Kisumu County government and the national government on how to rightly transfer that function to national government. Because the moment also, there should also be noted that if you go to Schedule 4 of the Constitution, Part 1 on the functions of national government, referral hospitals are a function of national government. And the moment a facility is elevated to that level, then it moves to that level of government. So there is a process and a procedure that needs to be adhered to. So for Chris, I think once we reach the conclusion of that transfer, like I also mentioned earlier on, we are in the process of transferring the management of Amboseli National Park to Kajiado County government. The process is still the same because it is in law. There are procedures that needs to be abided to. So not to say that they are wrong or they are right, but they must be right. They must get it right. That's what we should be able to say. On the other issues that is mentioned, we will take note of the concerns that he has raised. But as IGRTC, we are here to ensure that there is adherence, there is collaboration, harmonious existence between the two levels of government.
Thank you very much, CEO. I have
Dr. Kosure.
Yes.
I have a question for Dr. Chepkoni.
Is this number one, Jacob Mgumi?
Yes, Jacob Mgumi, yes.
And then Jonas,
I wanted to give chance to Jacob Mgumi, number one.
Okay, then Jonas, number two, please.
Okay. Whose hand was first? Jacob Mgumi, your number is showing one.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Chepkoni, for that good presentation. It's actually a good insight to us CSOs. I'm Jacob Mgumi. I'm the co-convener of the Kenya Devolution CS Working Group. I'm also acting as a secretary for the Kenya Devolution CS Working Group. I have two questions. One is to Dr. Chepkoni, the CEO of IGRTC. One is about the assets which you mentioned. Does it warrant you now to report to EACC so that the ones who are responsible can be able to be arrested and repay back the assets? What legal mandate do you have in that regard? Number two is about the policies which are made by county governments. We have seen county governments making policies all over, across all the counties, some policies and even some legislations which are not in tandem with the national policies and legislations. We have seen laws made by counties which are not conforming to national laws. So in that regard, then what is your mandate regarding policies and laws? Because some counties are making policies and laws which are not even for their own functions. They are also making them for other functions which are national government functions. Then number three, additional one I thought, is the economic blocks. The economic blocks are there. What legal mandate do they have when they start encroaching on national functions, when they exceed the functions of county governments and start be able to start implementing national functions? What control mechanisms do you have as a intergovernmental technical relations committee? And lastly, which is an overriding issue, you are saying there is harmonious relations between the county government and national government, but still there is interharmonious. We have seen the Gazette notice which you made and another one cancelling the same Gazette notice, which means there is no political goodwill between the two levels of government regarding what has been done so far. So what is your mandate? Do you have an option of going to court as a IGRTC if the two levels of government are not agreeing on anything and time is going? Do you have an option of going to court? And then the court will be final. Thank you. Over to you.
Over to you, CEO.
Thank you, Kosure. I think I will start from the last. When the two levels of government fail to agree on the functions, do we go to court? I would say, as it is, there is no dispute. It's not a dispute. It is just a matter on which has arisen from the delineation and unbundling of functions. And we must reach a consensus where we agree to what extent does one level of government implement one element of a function, or for those functions which are exclusive to one level of government, we are able to determine what is exclusive to one level of government is clear. That should not be a bone of contention, should not be of conversation. What we can only discuss is once that is clarified, if either level of government wants another level to be able to implement, that's different. But as to the delineation and assignment of functions, I think the constitution is clear and there is no dispute then. So there is no, I wouldn't foresee a situation where we need to go to court for interpretation on assignment of functions. But as we progress, if there would be need in future, for now, I'm sure that is within still our purview to be able to handle. Secondly, you spoke to the issue on the policies and legislations that are being made by the county governments that are inconsistent with the national government law. I think it would be an anomaly if any county government or any county assembly develops any policy or passes any law or legislation that is inconsistent or in contravention of the constitution. I have the privilege of having served as a member of county assembly in Nandi, and I am aware that at any one time during drafting stages, the lawyers in the county assembly kept referring to the fact that we cannot be able to develop any legislation or policies that are inconsistent with the law. Otherwise, it would only be interpreted and implemented to the level and the point that is consistent with the national law. So if there is any county that is implementing or developing any policies and legislations that are in contravention or that extends beyond the mandate of the county government or the county assembly, that clearly is a breach of the law. So that the law is clear on. Finally, on the issue of our assets, I want to be very clear. I think also my apologies to Dorothy. She had asked that question and I might not have been able to respond to that. The assets that I'm making reference to that we were not able to trace is one, there are gaps in the fact that during the transfer of assets or during the devolution, the promulgation of the constitution in 2012, PA carried out the process of identification and registration of all assets that belong to the defunct local authority and any assets that was attendant to any function that was assigned to the county government or transferred to the county government. Subsequently, there was verification that needed to be done. And after verification is valuation and then transfer. So the vehicles that we are making reference to that we are not able to trace is one, any assets that were identified at the inception and could not be traced during valuation or during the transfer is what I'm making reference to, that vehicles that were registered but physically could not be traced. And I did mention that we have made subsequent endeavors with the support of the county governments through the county secretaries, and more have been identified. From the shortage of 4,000, it has come down. I may not have the figures now, and I did mention that we are in the process of finally concluding to where we are able to say clearly, out of the 4,000 that was missing, we have been able to further identify an additional, say, 3,000 and 1,000 are missing. But also it is coming out clear that some of what we are calling, we were not able to find on site during transfer, is vehicles which are in the far-flung areas of the counties, and some which have now either become scrap metal, like a majority motorbikes, some tractors. It is quite a range of the equipments and motor vehicles. But then you remember, this was what was listed. And also, additionally, I would be quick to mention also that there were other additional motor vehicles and equipments that were identified post 2012. Because you will note that as we started the process of valuation and verification, some county governments had also started acquiring new motor vehicles and equipment that needed to be listed in the assets register. So that disparity of when they were listed during the transfer of functions or during the start of devolution, and now some have become, motor vehicles have become junk, some have become scrap metal. But we must be able to identify them. And at the point where we are able to say we are really with the partnership and the working with the county governments, that we are able not to trace any motor vehicle. Definitely, the route to go is to go to EACC and the DCI to be able to trace and track those motor vehicles, because these are public assets that they cannot be lost. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that question has been answered. My only fear is that we will continue losing things that we have in the inventories of the of those organizations that owned those assets. So it's upon you, Dr. Cheponja, and your organization to ensure that Kenyans do not lose their assets, because those are Kenyans' property, because they are taxpayers. Thank you very much. One question was not answered about the municipal schools that were supposed to be transferred to the counties. Is there any in Baringo? Thank you.
CEO?
Thank you, Dorothy.
A very quick
Yes.
one. I thought Dr. I can get a chance, but mine was a very quick reaction or just a concern.
That's Kimayo.
No, this is John Samuel from Pamoja Child Foundation, Kisumu County.
John Samuel, I thought maybe we get a response from the CEO about what my sister has just said.
Okay.
Then we go to Kimayo Tony, and then we can come to you. But you'll be the last one, please, because we have to put a stop. Yes.
Kimaya Tony is Dorothy Chebet, by the way. So I have asked my question. Yes.
It's the same Chebet.
Yes, Dorothy Chebet.
Oh, that is rigging.
Yes, that is Tony Kimaya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, John. Okay, John Samuel. Okay, John Samuel.
Yeah. Thank you.
John Samuel, can you go ahead? You are the last one.
For the contributions. Now mine was under the transferred functions, and specifically about education. We realize that now the ECD has been transferred or is now a county function. And the primary section, which nowadays is also talked about comprehensive, is a national function. And in terms of reality, or when it comes to implementation, you'll realize that almost 90% or 95% of all these government ECD are domiciled in primary or these comprehensive schools. So you come to realize that the construction, for example, the infrastructure, the classrooms, or even the sanitation, like the toilet and all that, all these are done in the compound or on the land that is under the primary. But yet it is a national, is a county government. So, and then the other challenge is it comes to even the sanitation and all that. What happens in the event that these things are being implemented and used, because now even the usage of even the sanitation facilities cuts across even for the primary. So there's been a difficult or a thin line to separate and also to be able to account and be responsible when it comes to this particular aspect. Now, moving forward, how can it be very clear so that it becomes crystal clear in relation to education and in terms of even the land? And I know all of them are government, but you realize at a certain point the national government has more say when it comes, or the Ministry of Education, when it comes to the compound or the grounds of the primary or comprehensive schools. So how can that also be sorted out for it to be as effective and as accountable as possible? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kosure. I think on the issue of the ECD and the primary function, it is clear the primary function is being a national government and ECD being a county function. We have established through the transfer of functions and resources that what is alluding to that some of the ECDs are existing exclusively from the primary schools. A majority, so to speak, of primary school or ECDs exist within primary schools. Some of the assets being utilized by the ECDs were either registered for the ECDs or were registered for the primary schools. And it at the onset, like I said, it created a lot of animosity between the national government and the county government. But now, with the realization of how we can all implement Article 6 of the Constitution, Article 189 of the Constitution on mutual cooperation between the two levels of government to ensure also there is maximum utilization of the resources. As we speak, like I mentioned, Kisumu County is one of the counties that we are, from next week, we are visiting the identified ECD centers. Either those are exclusive, existing independently, or those are within the land owned by county primary schools, or also primary schools that exist in land that belong to ECDs or registered for ECDs. And what we have discussed between the two levels of government is where there will be a mutual agreement on the joint utilization of such facilities. Because, like for sure, like you mentioned, ECDs really would not operate maximally or will be at optimal in absence of a primary school. And there is need for a primary school to have an ECD. So it only requires the two levels of government, through guided by the law, to have a position on how they will have joint utilization of such resources, where you have a primary school existing in a land that was registered for an ECD or vice versa, or also the fact that they might be existing independently, but close by, that there would be need to ensure that for purpose of service delivery, for education systems to run effectively in this country, there is need for the two levels of government to have a joint utilization agreement. And we've agreed that we are starting with the Kisumu County, as what Dorothy had asked, which are these counties that we are transferring the ECDs from the defunct local authorities or municipalities, which is Kisumu, Nakuru, Nairobi, Kiambu, Uasin Gishu, Trans Nzoia, and Mombasa. And we are beginning with Kisumu in the following week, where we'll have a lot of lessons also to be able to learn, and we'll be able to share, and it will guide us as we progress on how we are going to transfer and encourage the two levels of government to have a joint utilization memorandum.
Thank you very much. And this marks the end of the discussion in plenary. If you do allow, I asked for 10 minutes. I've taken 20. I'm so sorry, Dorothy. Now, I think what we need to do now is to get some closing remarks in a second or a minute. And the first one to take over is Dr. Michael Karanja on behalf of Judy Odipo, the team leader. Karibu, Daktari.
Hello, maybe before that, Dr. Kosure?
I hear you, sir.
Yeah, before that, I've been told by the convener, Evans Kibesa, that I'll make some few remarks before the other speakers come on board. Evans Kibesa has missed the meeting a bit. He's going somewhere. Is that okay?
Oh, very good. That's fine, sir. My brother Evans, come in.
Okay, I'm Jacob Ngumi. I'm speaking on behalf of Evans Kibet, who is the convener of the Kenya Working Group.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Jacob Ngumi. I'm the co-convener of the Kenya Devolution Working Group and also the secretary of the working group. We need to have a way forward, and one of the way forward I see out of the discussion is that the steering committee of Kenya Devolution CS Working Group will be able to meet and agree on some actions based on the presentation and the discussions of today's meeting. Maybe after this meeting, then Dr. Chepkoni or Dr. Kosure can share the presentation with us, then that will share with us, so that we can be able to gather all that data, all those legal notices, the gazette notices, the presentation, so that we can be able to follow up with the steering committee of the Kenya Devolution CSO Working Group. We shall have a post-webinar consultation meeting. Number two is about to the IGRTC. Do you think of having a transfer of functions conference? A transfer of functions conference, specifically for that matter, to be able to thrash out some of these issues, where you bring all the parties together. You bring CSOs, you bring national government, you bring the agencies, you bring the county governments, council of governors, and everybody in one place, in one sitting, so that they can thrash out some of these matters once and for all. Because when you deal with one party alone, they may be able to delay the whole process. If all the parties come together in one conference, and then they'll have a declaration or some agreements out of that conference, that will be very, very useful in terms of moving the agenda forward. We also bring other players who can support the transfer functions. We can bring even financials like other interested parties. The development partners also can come to that conference and also support some of the issues which have been delayed a bit. Thank you, and that's my remarks. Over to you, Dr. Kosure.
Thank you. Thank you, team. My name is Dr. Michael Karanja from ACT, and I will make a few remarks on behalf of Judy, the team leader. So at the beginning, Evans, the convener of the KCWT, gave some expectations of the webinar. He raised expectations regarding understanding of the role of IGRTC. And we have heard from the CEO the work of the IGRTC, including being secretary to the summit. We have also heard about the mammoth task they are undertaking in unbundling, costing, and transfer of functions. And so it's quite clear that expectation has been met. Kibet also raised the issue of status of unbundling. I wanted to know how far we are. And we have heard about unbundling, that it has been happening continuously since 2013. The CEO took us through the various legal notices. Since then, since the first 13 were transferred and costed, and up to the current, the Gazette notice of 2013, that has also been followed by a flurry of activities. So he has told us about the 28 functions that have so far been unbundled, and also the areas that are remaining, including agriculture, brew economy, fishing, animal health, and that 94 pieces of legislation have been earmarked for review. So he has told us about the successes so far, like the successful transfer of museum, library, and movable assets. He also told us that there is an estimate of 272.2 billion that should follow transfer of function once successfully done. We have learned some lessons. For instance, we have learned that each level of government can legally transfer a function if necessary. We have gotten the case of Abosel. We have also learned from comments of participants like Dorothy, that transferred functions need to be followed up closely. For instance, she has given us the example of a library function in Baringo that is nearly collapsing after being transferred. So the need for follow-up. The roles of the CSOs are quite clear after this. Although the co-convener, Mr. Gumi, has requested for a conference, a multi-stakeholder conference on transfer of functions. But we have seen there is something we can do, like picking up on the 94 pieces of registration in public participation, ensuring that they are aligned to the Constitution, and also undertaking assessment of service delivery in devolved functions like health, and assessing whether these functions are being done properly, looking at issues of accountability and so on. So thank you so much, Dr. Kipkurui Chepkwony, for that very fruitful presentation. Dr. Kosure for facilitating the meeting. Members of the IGRTC, Evans Kibet, the convener, and Jacob Gumi, the co-convener, and the members of Kenya Devolution CSO Working Group who are able to attend, and also the ACT team for preparing and convening the webinar. So thank you. Let us continue learning and using the learning to strengthen devolution. With that, the meeting is officially closed. Thank you.
Not yet, Mike.
Okay, I give it back to Kosure.
Thank you, Mike. The last word we needed now, we know the CEO IGRTC has talked too much, but it will only be important because he's one of the conveners of this to now make just one or two sentences closing remark. CEO.
Thank you, Dr. Kosure. First is to appreciate the conveners of this meeting and the participants that we have been able to have this conversation, and we are glad as IGRTC now that we have been able to have this conversation, because we are sure among us the stakeholders that will be engaging in future would be the same team that is here. So if they would be able to allow us to share, reach out to us, share with IGRTC your contacts, details, both either as an institution or individually, because this conversation must be able to continue, and we will be happy to have people who would want to take this journey with us. Again, from these, I think one of the partnership avenues that we'll be seeking from the stakeholders here, the CSOs and also the UK8 and ACT, would be one that with the realization now at the phase that we are in the implementation of the Constitution, specifically on the chapter on devolution, I think there is need to be able to do another circle. Someone needs to come up with a program on further sensitization of the counties with the realities now that we have been able to talk about. We need to do further civic education, and as a precursor to what the representative of Kibet mentioned on the issue of transfer of functions conference, I think we would be seeking partnership with the UK8 and ACT if we could be able to have a roundtable meeting as we plan on what we've been able to mention to all of you on the issue of assessment of the implementation of functions, so that we can be able to, I'm sure when we roll out this program on assessment of this implementation of the functions, some of the stakeholders that we'll have at the counties would be the CSOs that are based in the counties. And I am strongly, I have strong feeling that through ACT, we'll be able to also get support and partnership for us to be able to progress. Our assurance then from IGRTC is that we will be able to perform our mandate, and we'll keep all of you updated. At any one time, you can seek for any information from our end, either from our website or through our officers or through the office directly, and the information will be available. We thank you, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, CEO. I think I can't say anything more. It's been quite good and very good engagement. I think the next time we call it, we expect that the engagement will be even more and more. Today we have been having around 50 to 70 participants. So we are very, very grateful for all of you for honoring this event. And with that, I think we come to a close and request Maureen Mumbi Kariuki to put us in the hands of the Lord as we close. Maureen, over to you. Maureen? Maureen?
Dr. Kosure, can I pray? And we say the Lord's Prayer?
Fine, sir. Fine, sir.
All right. So I think let's do the Lord's Prayer.
Doc, lead us in the prayer.
I suggested you do the Lord's Prayer.
Okay, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Lead us into temptation. Deliver us from evil. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
Bye.
Thank you, members. Karibuni sana. Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
Lunch is up.
Lunch is served.
Where is that lunch? Where is that lunch?
Yes, Nekara.
How are you?
Director, hold on. Hold on.